So, have you ever wondered what would happen if the people who've actually been through the mental health system were the ones in charge of redesigning it? Well, today, we're diving into a global movement that's built on that exact idea. It's this concept that lived experience isn't just a story, it's a powerful kind of expertise that can drive some really profound change.
And this quote, it just gets right to the heart of it all. Lived experience isn't just personal, it is deeply political. That's really the key to understanding this whole thing. It's all about turning those individual journeys into a collective power that can make a real world difference.
And our guide for this journey is Andrew Turtle's book, Lived Experience Power. Honestly, you can think of it as the blueprint we'll be using today. It lays out exactly what this global movement is, how it actually works, and its incredibly bold vision for the future. Okay, so let's start with the basics, the foundation. What exactly is the lived experience movement? At its core, it's a collective effort, right? But the most important part, the real game changer, is who's leading the charge. This movement is driven by the very people who have firsthand knowledge of mental health challenges. They're taking their personal expertise and using it to totally transform the systems they once had to find their way through. Now, what's interesting is that this movement has actually grown from a few different streams. You might have heard it called the consumer movement or the survivor, peer, or user movement. Each one kind of started with a slightly different focus, but over time, all these groups have started to come together, creating this bigger, more unified force for reform. So, we get the what, right? Now let's dig into the how. What are the actual pillars holding this whole thing up? What does the movement do day to day? Well, the book breaks it down into 6 key pillars that are really the engines of the movement. You've got advocacy and leadership. That's about pushing for policy change at the very top. Then there are consumer-driven initiatives, which basically means services designed and run by people with lived experience. The movement also champions alternatives to traditional psychiatry, develops these powerful anti-stigma campaigns, and promotes peer work, which gets people with lived experience into the workforce. And finally, there's MAD studies, a whole academic field that challenges old-school views on mental illness. Okay, so how does the movement take all these pillars and turn them into actual real-world influence? The book lays out this really fascinating framework that shows the path from, just being heard to actually being in charge. And this all boils down to the biggest question, doesn't it? How does simply sharing a story, how does that actually shift the balance of power in a huge, complicated system like mental health? Well, the answer is in this idea called the engagement continuum. Think of it like a 5-step ladder of influence. It starts at the bottom with just informing, sharing information. The next rung up is consulting, where you get to give feedback. From there, you climb to involving, which means direct participation. Step 4 is a big one, collaborating, where people with lived experience are equal partners. But the very top of that ladder, the ultimate goal, is empowerment. And that's the whole point. Empowerment isn't just about getting a seat at the table. It's about designing the table, setting the agenda, and making the final decisions. It's a complete shift from simply influencing a system to actually leading it. So, with a powerful framework like that in place, what's the grand vision? Where does a movement like this go from here? The book argues that right now, the movement is often pretty fragmented. There's incredible work happening in little pockets all over the globe, but it's often siloed, kept separate, and that limits its overall impact. So the vision is to go from that fragmented state to a unified, globally coordinated movement where all these efforts are working together for universal impact. And this isn't just some pipe dream. The book lays out a concrete blueprint to make it happen. It imagines a global lived experience agency acting as a central hub, a lived experience Congress as a kind of global forum for policy, all supported by interconnected global networks and national groups. It's a real tangible structure for taking this whole movement to the next level. Which brings us to what might be the most important part, the call to action. Because look, this isn't just some academic idea or a theory for policymakers. This is a living, breathing movement that is picking up speed right now. This whole blueprint for a global movement, it's not a hypothetical what if. Like the book says, it's a call to action. It's a direct invitation for all of us to participate, to build, and to lead. The networks are forming as we speak, the momentum is growing, and the vision that's laid out in lived experience power is already starting to take shape. So the real question isn't if this is going to happen, but what part will you play?